People always ask how I balance my family life with 400 shows a year. I'm just doing what I love with the people I love. It's my magic life.
I like Wes Iseli. I like everything about him.
All right, guys, we are back, and this week we have a legend in magic. This is a guy that I've been following for a long time. We've never met in person. I actually invited him on the podcast. He said, I have to ask, do we know each other? Well, I mean, I follow you. I follow your career. I've known you for a long time, known of you for a long time. Everybody, it's Eric Buss. What's up, buddy? How are you?
Thank you. Hello, how are you? Nice to finally meet you.
I'm doing great, man. I'm happy to have you. I don't know. Were you on the cover of a Magic magazine? Is that how I would have found you originally?
Everything you're bringing up is like 35 years old.
No.
No, I was on the cover of the MUM in the year 2000. Yes.
So I have a collection of linking rings, mum, all of that go back to 1939. So I'm always digging through those. So I'm
in there somewhere.
I know that's where I first saw you. Then, obviously scrolling around YouTube and seeing you on Letterman with the bubble wrap bike. I mean, we can get into all that.
Nope. Letterman was the Spring Snake Symphony.
You didn't do... I thought you did bubbles on there.
No. In fact, were you asking me this on Facebook? Somebody else was asking me this on Facebook. The bubble wrap bike was on Jimmy Kimmel Live. I did the Spring Snake Symphony on The Late Show with David Letterman.
This is a Mandela effect. Dude, I 1,000% remember you riding that bike for him as a stupid human pet trick. That's weird.
I pitched it to Letterman to try to come back to do a second segment on Letterman, and they never bought the bike. However, so Letterman was 2007, which was before the bike even existed. I did Letterman in 2007. Years go by. The bubble wrap bike was invented in 2012, and I did send it back to Letterman. They never picked up on it. But then Jimmy Kimmel was doing a bubble wrap appreciation day bit every year. And they would usually use Guillermo, his assistant, wrap him up in bubble wrap and then beat the crap out of him or something. And they knew about my bike and they said no for a few years. And then they finally did say, yes, we want the bike. So, but it was a prop rental. I just went to the studio, gave them the bike, taught Guillermo how to ride it. He rode it on camera. My name was never mentioned, but it was my bike. So that was, I wanted him to mention my name on the air somehow. And they said, yeah, we'll see. But it ended up just being a prop rental. There was nothing about me, nothing about my performance.
Wow. Hollywood.
Yep.
Hollywood. All right. So
exactly.
So since this is the first time you've been on our podcast, let's go way back. How'd you get started in magic?
So I grew up in Tucson, Arizona, and in the early 90s, Tucson actually had quite a strong magic scene. But I was working, so a few things happened at once, which was kind of weird. And it's not a great story, but a few of these things happened at the same time. So it was just kind of seemed to be like, this is the direction I'm supposed to go in. I got a job at a small Italian restaurant called Venice Pizzeria, and there were all high school kids working there. I knew most of the kids working there already from school, but there was one kid working there who was already a part-time magician. His name was Adrian Van Vactor, and he was a year ahead of me in school. He was already doing close-up, and he was showing me close-up tricks on our breaks, and I was already interested in magic, but he was doing it right in front of my face. He wasn't David Copperfield. So now I'm thinking, well, wow, I didn't know, kids could do it like this. And then he told me about the magic shop in Tucson, which happened to be 5 miles from my parents' house, the house I grew up in. And so I started going to the magic shop all the time. Fast forward, or maybe even backing up a few months, I don't remember the timeline, a different friend of mine came over to my house and saw some magic in my bedroom. Just, on my desk, I had some magic tricks. And he said, dude, I do magic. I have that trick. I have this trick. I also got this one and this one. And so we didn't know we were into magic at the same time. So we kind of put our things together and did a talent show at the church like 3 months later. So we kind of joined forces and put together a little act for the church talent show. Now I was hanging out at the magic shop all the time. I'm still, hanging out with this other kid at the pizzeria. and I decided to join the SAM chapter, the Assembly number 136 in Tucson. And sure enough, back in the 90s, there were about 40 to 50 people would come to every monthly meeting. Every month was a huge meeting. And so a lot of just action, a lot of working pros. And so I started meeting people there, and I'm going, man, I didn't know magic was so accessible. I didn't know so many people did it. So that kind of got me started on the path. And once I was hanging out at the meetings every week, and I'd see the magicians over at the magic shop. So now I'm meeting, dozens of people within a few months. And so I just started taking it more and more seriously. And, there was also in Tucson a lot of bird acts. There were like 5 or 6 bird acts when I joined the club. Now, they were all varying degrees of, horrible to really, really good. And coincidentally, Adrian Van Vactor, the guy who was teaching me magic at the pizzeria, he had a stellar bird act. It was phenomenal. And so we started becoming better friends. He would help me out. Then I also became friends with John Chirac in Tucson. He is a working pro, has been ever since. And we're actually best friends right now. We've been in each other's weddings. But when I met him, I was 16, he was 23. And he was the only full-time working pro in Tucson. And so I realized he's only 23. He's already doing magic full time. And he told me he started magic when he was 16. I was 16. So I thought, oh my God, this is absolutely doable for me. So John and I started hanging out, in addition to the magic clubs. And he was kind of giving me informal lessons on working with my bird act. And that was kind of the beginning. So that I was off and running, and Tucson was just a really good place to be as a young magician or as a part-time magician. There were also monthly shows. There were annual shows in the big theater. There was walk-around gigs, magicians throwing each other gigs. So it was just very active in the 90s.
Wow. Dude, that is amazing.
That sounds awesome. Yeah.
Ours is just hobbyists.
Yeah.
Ours are
Yeah.
a handful of people that are...
Most are.
I'm the only full-time guy there, and it's just all hobbyists. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
Well, and 2025 is very different than 1991 also.
Yeah, but I mean, like, the DC ring 50 of IBM, that's huge. I mean, they had a 75th anniversary, and I think it was like 300 magicians there. But regular meeting night, they might have 50. But yet still, how many of those are full-time? Maybe a handful?
Sure, yeah.
But to have that many in 91, yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. So that explains how in 10 years you end up at Montreal Comedy Festival. I mean, you were getting work. You were working.
True. Well, so when I started practicing a bird act, and all the bird acts in Tucson, although many of them were good, they were all very standard classical style. Candles, multiplying balls, card manipulation, doves, a little bit of fire. And so I started down the road of one of those bird acts. And so I was already getting familiar with how to do a bird act, and I had done it on stage a handful of times, definitely fell in love with that genre. And I came home from a party in high school. I was probably into magic for a year or two. And I came home from a party and I started undressing, getting ready for bed. And I realized that if I undress, I could actually steal birds, and I could do a bird act as a magician coming home from after the show. And so I came up with this original idea and told a few of the guys in Tucson, hey, I got this idea. And they all went, oh my God, you got to run with that idea. That's a great idea. So I immediately started altering my tuxedo, altering the props, getting different music, and really kind of working on this new act of a magician after the gig. And so I think that debuted in 92, maybe late 92. So I guess I had only been serious in magic for a year or two and started working on that. And then it progressed and progressed, and I got, pretty good at that act. I did it at the Magic Castle starting in 96, and I was always filming, so then I was always sending those videos out. So yeah, 1997, well, I won the IBM convention with that act in 95 in Oakland, California. Got some magic conventions booked from that, which was a huge deal, and I was 20 years old there. And then when I was 21, worked at the Magic Castle. And so, yeah, then by '99, I was getting, bigger, more professional gigs, and then the Montreal Comedy Festival happened in 2000. Yes, so not most people forget that I've done that gig. I forget that I've done that gig. It's probably in the top 3 or 4 of my entire career, but because it's with an act that I no longer do, so I'm not really promoting that footage because it's just old. And B, it was 2000. It was before I could brag about it on Facebook. But yeah, the Montreal Comedy Festival is a huge, huge festival, and it was an honor to do it. I opened up for William Shatner. He was the host of the whole show, so I did my act, and then they brought him right out. It was an awesome gig, but a lot of people don't know that I did it. In fact, I forget that I did it. So I'm happy that you brought it up.
Dude, I love everything about it. The birds being put on the coat hanger, they used to have the old, put them on the linking rings and spin them around and all that. It's so perfect. I love everything about it. The originality of that I made it.
Thank you.
And the producing the dead bird and the smelly sock. Dude, he produces a dead bird.
That's funny.
And he picks up a stinky sock and wakes it up, and
Oh,
okay.
that's funny.
It's
That's
okay.
great.
So
when the bird would stay still, that was the best moment in the entire act. But occasionally the bird would wiggle prematurely and the gag was gone. And it was probably 60% success rate of the bird staying still. But when he did, it was spectacular.
Oh, great.
dude, your originality on this stuff, I don't know how you come up with it. So how did you end up into comedy magic? Because with all these guys doing serious dove acts, what made you go to comedy? Because you're so perfect for comedy, but what made you go?
Well, thank you. Yeah, my dad was always very funny around the house. I grew up watching my dad goof around, and his brothers were also very funny. In fact, his sister's very funny. So all my aunts and uncles and my dad were very funny people. And so I kind of just learned by watching my dad. In fact, he would quote Steve Martin from Steve Martin's movies and SNL all the time. And for years, I thought my dad was, had these original jokes. And then I find out later when I'm an adult that, oh, he was just quoting Steve Martin all the time. And so me imitating my dad, who was imitating Steve Martin, I started kind of being this Steve Martin-esque type of act. And, but I remember specifically, I was doing my classical style bird act, my very dramatic bird act. And, when I was probably 16, 17, this is the old bird act. And I was ahead of the music and I realized it. And I was going into this transition in the act where I had to be on the music, but I was way ahead because of nerves. So I think I just started dancing or something for no reason. And a 17-year-old kid dancing goofy on stage was funny. And it got a huge laugh, and I was like, oh, wow, that laugh really felt neat. I want to pursue that. And so even though that act only lasted a few more months before I changed to the other act, I think I started doing a silly little dance wherever I could. And in addition to the bird act, I was also, working on just parlor-style magic. And, of course, Jeff Hobson, David Williamson, Michael Finney, all those guys were idols of mine. So I think I just started naturally going the route of comedy magic. I never really wanted to do David Copperfield type stuff. And I was never really into card tricks, although I did walk around as a kid. But I think comedy just pulled me that direction, and it just seemed like a good fit. I could always goof around. And then, of course, when I started getting better, I wasn't just goofing around on stage. I was trying to, write funny ideas and take a trick and then just swap this prop out for something funny or, so I just kind of naturally started going that direction and I've never looked back. So there you go. Comedy magic was born.
We hadn't met before and just seeing your acts and everything. But even when I have friends on here and they tell me where their influences come from, it all makes sense. It just opens it all up. Now hearing that you're trying to kind of not embody, but kind of a little bit of influence from Steve Martin, I get it now. It makes sense, Yep. I can see you on stage with an arrowhead. I can see that on you. That would make sense. Yeah.
And I think in the beginning, I was not intentionally, but I was definitely letting Steve Martin motions happen in my act. And people were telling me, oh my God, you remind me of Steve Martin, which I was taking as a huge compliment. And my dad got the same comments. But after I really started, pursuing a professional career, I went, I can't just be like Steve Martin. So I kind of toned down the things that I was doing. And even though they were natural for me and they were very sincere for me, you could look at it and still go, okay, that's Steve Martin, take it out, because I used to do this, whoa, I don't know what we're doing, and I kind of have cut that stuff out. And not to mention, I'm much older now, so my character has just kind of evolved. It's more me. It's gone through some goofball stages. It's gone through some dorky stages. It's gone through some smartass stages. And now I think at age 50, it is kind of all of those stages put together. I'm still a bit of a goofball on stage, but I'm still a cynic, and I have a little bit of smartass, in me. So it's all kind of now me. But sure, early on, it was a lot more Steve Martin than it is now. So there you go.
You have so many classic bits. Do you shelve them after a while, or do you feel like you have to do the pogo? You have to do the snake can symphony. Do you feel like you have to do those? Crowds are looking for them, or?
Yes and no. Fortunately, I have come up with a lot of stuff over the years. No, it is not all still in my repertoire. I've done, there have been acts that have been completely retired. The Bird Act, for one. And in fact, the Bird Act closet that I used to use is now the Spring Snake Symphony, the rack for all the snakes. I kind of cannibalized that prop. As well as my lounge act, which was a zombie microphone routine where a microphone would float around while I'm lip syncing into it. That has been retired. And my rabbit impalement, I used to put a rabbit into a little box and then shove it down on a giant carrot stick, and the rabbit would pop out the top impaled by the carrot stick. And of course, he got restored and he was fine in the end. But that routine has been retired. I do not have any live animals anymore. Pogo stick is still in the show. I'm 50 and bouncing on a pogo stick, but it's such a good routine early in my show where I get a woman on stage, and I get to know her, she gets to know me, the crowd gets to know me through our interaction. It's just such a good routine for the early part of my show. And it's always kind of been in the early part of my show. And so if I'm on a big enough stage, I will absolutely do the pogo stick. I don't do it at the Magic Castle anymore because we're doing 17 shows a night, and it's what I started there. I mean, I did the Bird Act at the Castle, but then I was doing the pogo stick late 90s, early 2000s. So now I don't do it everywhere that I work, but I do it most places where it would be a new audience and a big stage. Cruise ships, fairs, I'm definitely doing the pogo stick. But yeah, I mean, some things, you kind of have to retire them after a while, or for some reason, sometimes things don't get the response that they used to. And the lounge act for me is a perfect example. And it was like my wife and me were the only people that noticed this. And lots of other magicians are like, hey, why aren't you doing the lounge act here? Why aren't you doing it anymore? Why aren't you doing it in this theater? And the truth is the lounge act was great for small theaters where people could see my facial expressions. They could see my choreography with the music, because the song had so many little hits that I was really using all these little beats in the music. And if it was a giant stage, all that was lost. And so I felt it, and I knew it, and I was right that the lounge act didn't kill on big stages as well as it did on small stages. At the Magic Castle, the lounge act was perfect. Comedy Club, perfect. But big theaters, it wasn't as good. And I was putting on a wig and lip syncing. Now, you could argue that way back when I came up with it in 99, that was cheesy back then. However, I feel in 99, 2000, early 2000s, a lip syncing routine with a funny Elvis wig was better comedy than it is in 2025. And I started to feel like I don't want to wear a wig anymore and lip sync. I feel like I'm doing a talent show at a fraternity or something. You get on a cruise ship and you see the cruise director putting on a wig and lip syncing, and everyone's laughing, and I'm like, I don't really want to do that anymore. So it just became less and less funny over the years. My magician friends, very supportive, disagreed, or they just didn't notice because they weren't with me at all these different gigs. But I kept saying it's not as funny as it used to be. And so I eventually kind of had to take that out of the show. And also, that routine had a lot of kind of costume requirements. It was very angly. It was not an easy routine to do in certain venues. Plus, I had this big Elvis wig that I was packing in a little case, so it was just taking up a lot of room. So I eventually decided I'm retired with the lounge act. So yeah, things evolve, and I kind of bring in something new, replace an old thing, take out the old thing. But I've also found that when you take something out of the show for months or a year or 2 years and go back to it, it's like it's brand new, and you're excited to do it. You might you might improve it from, years back. And I have a routine right now that I really want to bring back into the show. And it's basic with an alphabet deck of cards and a big thing of tape. So it's not a big, huge routine, but more of a parlor size. But I'm kind of trying to bring that back into the show because I want to bring it back, and I want to rethink it and maybe make some improvements. So I always find taking things in and out, shuffling them around, keeps you sane, keeps everything fresh.
But even if you don't change it, just it breathes life into your show and it revives you. It feels new to you again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, even if you bring it back the way it was. Yeah, absolutely.
What was I skimmed it really fast. I fast forwarded it because I was logging on with you and I'm still watching video clips of yours. We've been busy this week. What was the disco ball? You adjusted your hair in a disco.
So that was the lounge act, and I was wearing the big Elvis wig. And at one point, I would yank my sideburn, and a mirror ball would pop out of the wig and spin. With the lighting people, we would always hit it with a bunch of bright lights, and it was the funniest moment in that routine. And it was, I was basically doing the routine to get to that point because it was such a funny moment. But it was, so the mirror ball would pop out of my wig, it would spin, I would continue doing the zombie microphone. I have a few more lines of song that I'm lip syncing to, and then the microphone would disappear, and that was the end of the routine. So the mirror ball production was kind of the beginning of the end of that routine. It was a big laugh, a little bit more lip syncing, the microphone disappeared, and done, blackout. So that was what the mirror ball was. And I loved doing it, but without the whole routine, there's no reason to have a mirror ball pop out of a wig. But I'm now doing a different routine with an audio looper, and I'm using the mirror ball in that routine. It's not popping out of anything, but I am bringing out a mirror ball at one point, putting it on a prop that I've used, earlier, and we hit it with lights and same thing. And then I kind of use my audio looper to create weird, obnoxious sound. So it's kind of like a music festival, on a small scale. So I guess I'm a big fan of mirror balls. I don't know.
No, I love your looper routine. I got so much I want to get into. We're already 20 minutes into the thing. I feel like I'm not gonna have enough time because there's so much with you.
I know. I talk a lot. Tell me to shut up anytime.
No, I'm loving it. I love it. Are you a musician? Did you take music classes? Do you play an instrument? Because you do a lot of musical things in your show.
I do. I took piano from age 7 to 14. I hated every second of it, but my mom would make me practice, and I actually got really good not really good, but I was pretty good from age 7 to 14. By the time I was in my teens, I was a pretty decent piano player. My teacher was very strict, had to do recitals once or twice a year, a big ensemble at the giant auditorium downtown Tucson with dozens of other kids were all playing piano at the same time. These big, huge events. But I didn't like it. So I quit piano at 14, got into magic at 16. Definitely loved that way more. Practiced without being told to. But yes, I've always loved music. My dad was a huge classical music fan. I do appreciate classical music, although I don't turn it on to listen to. But I've always loved music, and music has always been kind of an influence in my magic, or I let it inspire me. Whether or not I use it for a routine on stage doesn't matter. If I'm listening to a song that I love, even like the Beastie Boys or something like that, I might be listening to music while I'm building magic. So it's always been an influence. But the audio looper, yeah, I guess I've also always had a fantasy of being a rock star, rap star, DJ, musician, live on a stage with 30,000 people watching. Of course, who wouldn't want to try that? But specifically the looper, I think it was in 2015, I was at a theater conference with lots of different performing arts things, happening all over the place. And I saw this act that it was a woman playing the guitar and a man playing a bicycle. And he had a bicycle on stage upside down, so the wheels were up here, and he had, some drumsticks and some other things and a microphone. And he was just spinning a wheel and, recording these things with a microphone into a looper while she was playing guitar and singing. And I knew what loopers were, but I didn't really know that they could be used in that way. I assumed you had to sing into or plug your guitar into a looper to loop that guitar. I didn't know it would work with an actual microphone, recording organic sounds. So when I saw this guy playing a bicycle, I thought, holy cow, I could play magic props and, do this DJ set and create magic and music at the exact same time using the magic props as the instruments. So when I was watching that, I kind of, I think I went home and bought a looper immediately. And I went for the Cadillac of loopers. It was $500, and it's made for beatboxers, and it's on a tabletop. It's not like a foot pedal like a guitar player would use. But I bought the looper and put together my looping routine, which is my current, closing routine in my show, and fell in love with looping. I'm still not great at it compared to the professionals. If you go on and look at, professional looping guys and beatboxers, it is mind-blowing. So I started watching those guys. I'm using magic props as the instruments. I do a little beatboxing, but not much. So yeah, I'm creating a song. Am I a musician? No. And it's not a great song that you would listen to in your car, but it's creating a song with the magic props. So music has definitely always been an influence. I don't really consider myself a musician, but I can carry a beat, sure.
But I can see it. Like I can see the Steve Martin. I can see it. When she's in a floating box, we have it levitate and go left and right and things. And then at one point, it just starts dancing. And I have to clap to the beat. And it takes me a second. I have zero rhythm, man. I have to catch the beat. I got it. I think I got it.
You need a little inner earpiece.
Can I go with them? Yeah, I have no rhythm, man. I'm envious of that. Also,
that's funny.
In my world, I look up to you as being a man. The event that you just got to, you are at the Loft in Lake Tahoe until February 18th, 2025. Get your tickets today, because whatever. But
if you happen to be in Lake Tahoe, yes.
If you happen to be there, or happen to be around there, or have friends, call them. Tell them to go see this dude. Tell Natalie about your trip up there and what you went through.
Uh-oh.
Oh, geez. Well, it was not fun. I knew they were expecting snow the day I was driving up, and I have a little front-wheel drive SUV. I regret not buying the four-wheel drive SUV, but my wife and I justified it. We couldn't justify it by going to snow once a year. There was no reason why we should buy the four-wheel drive SUV. I regret that now. But driving up last Thursday. So you start at the Loft on a Thursday and you go till a Tuesday. You have the Wednesday off because they have a local magician do the show, and then you do another week like that. So a week at the Loft is a Thursday through Tuesday. So Thursday morning, I woke up at 6 in the morning. I left the house by 7 in the morning so I could get to Tahoe early to set up the full show, including driving through snow. So I was giving myself as much time as I could. I couldn't leave the Wednesday before when it was sunny weather. I had to leave Thursday, and there was expected snow when I was getting closer to Tahoe. And so it was just outside of Bishop, California, which is on the way to Tahoe from LA. But you can also take the 5 through Sacramento, and that's a popular thoroughfare. And I normally go that route, but today or this day, it just said, go this direction. So I went this other way, and just north of Bishop, it started dumping snow. And I think it started covering the ground within 20 minutes of me driving into this snow. And it was getting thicker and thicker, and I started sliding a little bit. So it's dumping. It's in the middle of the forest. No one is around, and I pull off. And when there's snow on the ground, you don't know where the road, ends. You don't know how far you can go to the edge before your car just goes doink. So I'm pulling over slightly to the edge, but I'm still kind of in the road. I quickly put on tire chains, which quick, sure, I like cut up all my hands and I'm just dirty at this point. It is freezing, so your hands are frozen in 5 minutes. I put on all my tire chains. I drive and the tire chains are working. I feel good. But the road is still really, really bad. It's still coming down. A few cars are out there here and there. But then I started hearing snaps on my tire chains. And I've had a lot of tire chain problems in the past, but they were always with the cable chains. These were the real deal, the real heavy duty chains. And I'm hearing snaps, so I think my chains are coming off, but they're not. They're breaking. The piece that goes under the tire, there's a bunch of those little pieces. Those just started flying off. And so now there's, slapping the fender and making this loud noise. And I thought, well, I can't fix that. And I can't take off my tire chains. I have to just drive listening to this. And maybe I could wrap that loose piece into the other part of the chain, but so I could keep driving, and then another one would snap, and then I think 3 snapped total. And I know, and it's all on the left tire. I know I'm losing, traction, but I'm still moving forward. And long story short, that was like 2 hours of just death grip on the steering wheel, no radio, so I could listen to what was going on the outside of me, full defrost on all the windows, a handful of cars coming and going, but I'm by myself. And I finally get to a place where it stopped snowing, and then I think closer to Tahoe, it hadn't been snowing all day. And once I got to Carson City, the road from Carson City to Tahoe is a very big thoroughfare, so they plow that immediately. So once I got to Carson City, the rest of the drive was actually very easy. It was just this small back mountain road that I probably shouldn't have taken this day. I probably should have gone through Sacramento. So it was an 8.5-hour drive that should have been 7. And my hands were kind of bleeding and I was dirty, but I got to the loft in time, set up my show, washed my hands, and I did a show a few hours later. My hands were just thawing out, and it ended up being a decent show, but yeah, not a fun day. I had some drinks after that show.
I bet.
I told him before we logged on, I've been on the side of the road. Just somebody come along eventually and help me. I can't get out and do all that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't. So my dad had Parkinson's.
I thought about that. Like, what if I just pull over and call 911? What will happen? Should I do that? I don't know.
Yeah, right?
So my dad had Parkinson's since I was 7 years old. We always, anything broke, we just called a fix-it guy. So I never learned how to fix anything, build anything. The first time I worked away from home, I was working on a farm doing scary magic when I was 18. I got hired there for the month of October. And they needed me to clear an area out of the woods, a haunted hayride type event. And here's a chainsaw, here's some gloves, go. I crank it up, I cut the tip of my finger with my glove off. I don't know what I'm doing. They thought I was 18, Of course. I don't know what I'm doing. But you are fixing stuff. You build your own props, you do all this stuff. Manly man out in the cold wilderness putting snow chains on in a blizzard. I look up to you, man. This is admirable to me. All right, so during the pandemic, a lot of professional magicians were doing a lot of things where they weren't doing magic anymore, right? They couldn't do magic, or they were doing the Zoom shows, but I don't know how many really made a good living off Zoom shows. You were out there busting butt and creating works of art. And I'm looking at these videos every day. I have a treehouse in my backyard. It's got a potty. It's got a wood stove. It's got a loft. It's got a desk. It's probably 15 by 10.
Maybe.
And I got 2 flights of steps going up to it. But it was here when I moved in. I can't build any of that stuff.
Oh.
So I'm looking at yours, and I'm looking at the different doing these creations. So tell me, and mine's a camping toilet, but it has its own bathroom camping toilet in this tree house. It's kind of cool. It's kind of, you don't use it, but you tell people it's got a bathroom. It's cool. Tell everybody about your tree houses.
Send me photos later.
I will. But how did you get in the tree business?
So backing up, yeah, my dad was an amateur carpenter, and my dad built, decorations, Christmas ornaments, bird houses, bird feeders, and a few pieces of furniture. He built me like a nightstand for my college dorm. So he wasn't a fine craftsmanship, type of guy, but he could put wood together and he could make it look good and very functional. He would build things way stronger than they needed to be. He loved building overkill. So, which is a good quality to have when much later you, like me, learning how to build that way, I'm building tree houses. So February 2020, before the pandemic, actually, I built my son a treehouse. It was his 8th birthday in February, and I decided to build him a treehouse. And we didn't even have a tree, but it's this little platform in the backyard. It's kind of in some bushes, so it feels like a treehouse. And I loved doing it. It was a much more fun project than I expected. Then the pandemic hits, and magicians start doing Zoom shows. And I mean, Wes, you saw that I could barely log into this podcast to do this. I was not about to do Zoom shows. I was not clicking on my computer and entering passwords and downloading crap. I would rather work at Lowe's. And so the beginning of the pandemic hits. I start doing handyman work around Burbank, simple stuff for people, patching drywall, fixing a lighting fixture, just simple stuff. But then July 2020, my son's 2nd grade teacher, who saw pictures on Facebook of our treehouse, she hired me to build a treehouse for her son, and she wanted to pay well. And so I did. I said yes. I went and built them a treehouse, and she paid well. And I was like, well, that was really fun. And I put pictures on Facebook. And then another family saw them on Facebook. And side note, Burbank, California has a lot of, in our area specifically, has a lot of great Facebook pages of very active mothers looking for babysitters, looking for this advice, that advice. So they're very active. So my wife was putting these pictures on her, on the mom pages of Facebook, and it was just exploding. People saying, we want one, we want one, we want one. So the pandemic obviously helped. Everyone was stuck at home. So from July 2020 through July 2021, it was 1 year to the month, I was doing nothing but tree houses. And it was one after another. I would usually take a day or two break after finishing one treehouse before starting the next one. But I would, while I'm building one, I would meet with a new client at their house, talk about what they wanted, look at their tree or their backyard, we'd decide on what was going to happen. And then right after I'd finish this one, I'd go and start this one. So there was zero advertising. It all was happening because of Facebook and word of mouth. And most of them were in my area within a few miles. I built a handful in the LA area, a little bit further. I built one in Altadena, which I think it survived the Altadena fires of LA a few weeks ago, but to be honest, I'm not positive. So anyway, but it was mostly in my area. But now that I'm doing it and getting paid, now I'm watching YouTube videos of how should I do this? How should I do that? My dad's knowledge, it only got me to a certain point, but then I really started having to shop bigger, buy bigger nuts and bolts. I was buying a new power tool every time I got a new treehouse gig. I was buying a new power tool that I could use, because when I started, I had like 3 things. And I could build a treehouse with those 3, but obviously it wasn't the fastest way to do it. So I started buying new power tools and researching how to use those, researching how to do this joint and that joint. But the cool thing about a treehouse is the kids don't expect furniture, fine details and joints. You're not really, it doesn't have to be that perfect. They are good from far and not far from good, but they're not flawless. But I was able to make them sturdy, look good from a distance, or even look good somewhat up close. And it's a treehouse. So the kids get up there, they don't care what kind of joint these 2 pieces of wood make. They're attached, and they're attached securely. So that's all they care about. So I was just and I was making it up as I went along. These people would want a rock wall and they want this, and I would try this and try that. And other people wanted a staircase instead of a ladder. And these people wanted a swing set. So how is it going to attach here? So I started kind of calling it sculpting, because you can't really plan a treehouse, before you get up in the tree and look at all the tree limbs and all this. So you kind of have to just go one step at a time, and I was literally sculpting things together, which I found out is the way I really like to work. it probably would not work as a contractor or as an architect or as a real carpenter. They need to know a plan, beginning, middle, and end. But because I was building in the pandemic and I was the only guy in town doing a treehouse, they kind of had to agree, like, yeah, let's wing it and see what happens. And I was batting a 100% success rate. So my sculpting worked, but I think most contractors would probably freak out at the way I was doing things because I wasn't planning ahead. But I was much cheaper and I was available. So there you go. It was a really cool chapter of my life, even though the world was going to crap. And I have built 2 tree houses since the pandemic. One was June of 24, and one was a few weeks ago. I just finished another one. And I kind of want to get back into it. I kind of want to balance between magic shows, traveling, and doing tree houses. And I might be doing a tree house for Gay Blackstone's granddaughter, actually, in the next coming months. So I don't know if I can get that same need for them that was during the pandemic. People don't need tree houses like they did 5 years ago, but there's definitely still a bit of an interest for it. So I kind of want to do a few more now. I love doing it. It's really fun.
I was following the adventure during COVID, and you're such a great magician, but I could also see you not going back to magic because you looked like you were having a blast. Everybody was so daggone happy. All the comments were just ranting and raving how great it was. So I was like, I don't know. We might have lost Eric to treehouses. Yeah.
Well, it's funny you mention that because I did think about that. And I thought, but then I realized, like, if the world opens up again, COVID gets cured, and we all just go back to normal, would I still be happy doing only tree houses? Now, if I'm seeing my friends on Facebook and they're back to traveling, doing cruise ships, doing big magic shows, sold out audiences, or will I get jealous? And I realized I think I still want to do magic because during COVID, everyone was at home and I was loving tree houses. I was not jealous of Zoom shows. But if the world opened up again and I was only doing tree houses, I would start to get jealous of friends, doing big shows. So it was definitely, I had to go back to performing. And I did, and I have, and I do still love it. But the treehouse last June, that was kind of just a random, like they happened to see tree houses. They have a young kid. In fact, their kid was born after COVID. So during COVID, it wouldn't have even been a thing for this family to hire me. So last June I did one and I'm like, oh yeah, I still love this. And then recently, the one I did 3 weeks ago, even better because it was a mile from my house. The family was really, really nice. And I didn't have a magic gig until Tahoe, where I had the Magic Castle early January. Then I had like 2 or 3 weeks and then the Loft here. So I had this time, they booked me, we agreed on a price and I did it. And I went, I really still love doing this. It's just hard to schedule with the travel. And like I said, there's not quite the demand for tree houses that there was 5 years ago. But yeah, if somebody wants to pay me, I will build a tree house for them anytime, anywhere. So I do still love doing it.
You say anytime, anywhere, but you want it to be California. I mean, right?
Well, I would, it's actually a bit of a fantasy to like fly somewhere else with all my power tools and, rent a big truck and put together one in a forest on some dude's, 8 acres of land. It would be fun. Obviously, the money would have to make it worth my while. If it's an LA treehouse, yes, I want it to be in Burbank or, in my area because LA traffic is so bad. The one I did back in June was 1 hour from my house. It was probably 7 miles from my house, but there was no good way to get there. Freeways were not the way to go. It was right through the city, right through Hollywood, right through LA. It took 1 hour minimum to get there every day. So that one was a bit of a pain in the butt. The recent one was really close by, but I'll do it anywhere. Just kind of make the time and make it work.
Yeah.
All right, so we're getting close to running out of time. We got like 20 minutes left. I want to talk about another thing that you obviously building as a builder, your Halloween displays.
Oh yeah.
How the heck do you have time? We're doing so many magic shows, and I'm showing her videos of your Halloween stuff, and she's like, how does anybody, a normal person, anybody in the world have time to put out this much stuff?
When
So
do you
if you've
start?
seen the movie
Like
Christmas
July?
Vacation and how crazy
Good
his
question.
house is,
Right.
imagine that as Halloween. That's what this dude's house looks like.
I'm imagining you guys starting like in July. You're starting to decorate in July for Halloween.
Yes and no. So I've always loved Halloween, and my wife and I, back in 2003, had our first Halloween party, and it was a huge hit, and it was mostly just our good friends. So we're not talking huge, but we had invited even the friends that we didn't see very often. So year number one, we probably had 40 or 50 people at our little duplex house over in West LA. And it was such a success, we continued doing it. And I decorated the garage that very first year for an extra hangout. Put up black fabric everywhere, some spooky stuff, and it became the lounge of the party. And it became our late night hangout, as well as decorating everywhere else. And we continued doing this party, even though we were moving houses occasionally. And then when we bought our house in 2010, we kept doing the party. But in Burbank, we found out that people were decorating their front yards a lot. And when we were in duplexes, we weren't decorating too much out front just so we weren't annoying our neighbors. We just have the one party and that was it. Now that we own our house, we have our own front yard in Burbank where lots of people decorate. We moved there in 2010, so we really started going, oh wow, we can kind of expand into the front yard. My wife is extremely supportive and loves it, although she's not a builder, so it's all me. But in Burbank, we just kind of had this little extra support base of, and an audience. And so then in like 2000, I don't know, 18 or 19 or whatever, we started competing in the local contest. But my rule was always not starting until October 1st. I do not want Christmas in my November. I don't want Halloween in my September. I'm a purist. So that was my rule, and my wife's rule is we wouldn't start decorating the front yard until at least October 1st. But there was no rule about me building things in July or September. And so just recently, with our new theme of the Forbidden Playground is the theme that we do now in the front yard, I do build things year round, and I am shopping year round, getting more black lights, getting more smoke machines, doing this, buying more motors. And also now that it's the Forbidden Playground, it's a children's, a spooky playground. So I'm always on the lookout for old dolls at thrift shops, mannequins and all that stuff. So I'm shopping for that year round. I'm kind of building or tinkering year round, but it won't go in the front yard till October 1st. So I do have a shed in the backyard that's only Halloween stuff, and it is completely full. And now that we're competing each year, we competed with our old theme of the pest control company gone wrong with giant insects and all that. We changed the theme. Now we're doing the Forbidden Playground, which is spooky kids. And we've done that theme 3 years now, maybe 4. And this past year, we just won 3rd place in the Burbank contest. So now we are getting a little notoriety for our front yard. We do have a fan base for our front yard that comes back every year. And we also get ourselves on these lists. There's the SoCal Haunt list. There is Holidays in Burbank list. And there's just random people on the internet put together these lists of all the houses you can go visit. And Burbank, as you can imagine, right next to all the big movie studios, we have all special effects pros, writers, directors, lighters, builders, etc., all in our neighborhood. I mean, within Burbank, and Burbank isn't that big. So within a few miles each direction, there were 50 houses in this contest, and I mean, all 50 are really, really good houses. The winner is it's spectacular. There are a few houses, it's like Disneyland quality. I mean, you're going and you're just seeing these things. So we're not even up to that level, but we did get 3rd this past year, and we are probably a little more original than most. A lot of people are buying props and then putting them in their front yard. Or some people are buying props and then displaying them really, really well in their front yard. There are the big stuff. There are the builders that I'm talking about as well. But I pride myself on building all of our own stuff. We have our own kind of unique theme. There's a lot of clown themes in Burbank right now. Clowns are scary, so there's some really, really good clown houses. There's a lot of pirate themes. This past year, there was a lot of Beetlejuice themes. A lot of people just take a movie and recreate some scenes from the movie. And that's Burbank and Hollywood and LA for you. I get it, but for me personally, I like to be a little bit more original. So we are, our own theme is the spooky playground, and I try to alter dolls, or if I buy a Halloween thing, it kind of gets altered and it gets used in a weird way. So that's why we're a little more original than a lot of the houses. We're still building our I don't know what you want to call it, our repertoire of all the things we have. We added quite a bit of movement this past year. I think we had like 4 new moving props and like 20 new dolls. So it really kind of got a boost this past year, and which is why I guess we won 3rd place. Next year we might not win anything, who knows? But we love doing it, and it's my hobby in October. And you mentioned everyone's too busy doing shows in October. That is true. I'm the one dumb enough to take the second 2 weeks of October off, and I'm only about Halloween in October. I don't want to do shows, and I certainly will not perform on Halloween night. We do the party still, but it's now every other year because it kind of got too big. We have a caterer, a DJ, a bartender. So we do the party every other year now. We just did it a few months ago. 2025, we will not do the party. So that means I have more time to work on the front yard. But I don't perform that many shows in Halloween. It's about Halloween. It's not about my magic shows. So probably not good for our bank account, but I take 2 weeks off in October.
So here's the thing, guys. 6 inches of snow. It's still coming down. Our power's flickering. Everything's going on. But Eric Buss is amazing. He's like, dude, my show's not till tonight. I'm fine. Email me back when you get a chance. You're the best.
Thank
We
you.
were talking about Halloween.
Yeah.
And that he has a caterer, a DJ, and a bartender at his Halloween party.
Yeah.
And I said, we have 5 acres. We take people on the haunted trails. We do it up big here.
We have a lot of food, but no caterer.
No bartender or
No.
DJ.
No. We have food, we have drinks, but music, but it's all self-done.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, we in the beginning of our party, my wife was, slaving in the kitchen all night trying to bring out the chicken fingers and the egg rolls and the apps. And I don't think I ever really noticed because I was partying. And then one year she said, I'm in the kitchen for most of the party. And I mean, this was going back years ago, and she said, I would like to not do that anymore. And we were like, oh, okay, great. And we were older, our careers were good. So we started hiring a caterer and a bartender and all that. It actually started at our 40th birthday because my birthday's October, hers is November. So the Halloween party is right in the middle of our birthdays. So it's always been kind of our birthday party. So when we both turned 40, which was 10 years ago, we started doing the caterer, and yeah, we've never looked back. It's been wonderful. She's able to enjoy more of the party, and it just makes it more fun. So that's when we started the caterer.
Wow. Yeah, she has chili. She has mummy dogs and chili, so that's easy. You just throw them in the oven.
Nice.
Are you slaving all night? You're still doing stuff.
Yeah, I still have the
We have to get a caterer now. Thanks, Eric.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm jealous of your 5 acres. I would love to do 5 acres, although that sounds like a lot of work. One front yard is a nice little, display, and I can call it quits. I can be done.
I know what
Well,
we
hey,
have.
if you ever want to come on over, you can decorate as much as
All
you
right.
front yard, backyard, back trails. That'll be our epic year. We'll just have to leave it up so we can.
All right, let's do it.
Most of our 5 acres is woods.
Yeah.
So we have
Nice.
great trails that cars can fit down. That's how wide they are.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh, wow.
I rake them and pick up sticks that fall from trees. Our front yard is probably about as big as your front yard. We have a side yard that's probably about as big as your front yard. And then our backyard is really 15 feet wide. It's not much. It's just a runway to get
Okay.
sheds, my gym, my work shed,
Yeah.
and entrances to the trails and the treehouse. So
Got it.
rest
got
of us all. I mean, we have a little BB gun range in the back. I have it all set. It's all axe throwing wall. I got it set, man. I'm a big
Wow, nice.
Yeah.
That sounds
So
fun.
Anyway, let's get back to you though. EricBuss.com. You were talking about something happened with your website that it's down, but it's back up. You're working on it. I want
Yes.
to know about your products you have for magicians and the products you have for laymen. You have some things for laymen as well.
Yeah, so my website was down. It's back up. Let's say it's 80% back up. I don't know if the magic shop on my website is current. I don't believe it is. But we're going to be making some updates to the website in general, the magic shop there. Um, Good and bad news for magicians. Yes, I do have a few products that I've sold over the years. No, I do not keep up with these things or build thousands of them. It started in 2005. I invented the phony magnet, which was the big horseshoe shaped magnet where a cell phone appears on the end. I did sell over 1,000 of those throughout the years, starting in '05 through maybe 2011 or 12. It was hard for me to keep up with cell phones and what they looked like. They're always changing, so it was real, and they don't always make a toy that looks the same as the real thing. So it was really hard for me to keep up with what cell phones look like. That is pretty much off the market. However, I do have old horseshoe magnets that I can paint. If people, I have had people email me and say, hey, can I just get a horseshoe magnet? Or can you build one for me with a wallet or with a watch or jewelry or a playing card or whatever? And I can do that. I could build one with a cell phone. If somebody sent me the cell phone they wanted to use, I could do that. So it's not really available, but people have asked me about it, and yeah, I can do it. The current thing I do have available, which again, I don't have lots of, I just build them as people order them, is my topsy-turvy glue bottle called Stuck Up. And basically, it's a glue bottle, and you put it in a paper tube, and then any which way is, it's upright, it's upside down, and it's a topsy-turvy routine. It's very deceptive. It's not done with a shell like the old cherry soda bottles. So that is something I do sell to magicians. It's usually sold through the Magic Apple, the magic shop in Los Angeles, in Studio City. Brent is a good friend of mine, so I sell it through his magic shop. If you do want one, you can contact the magic shop, or you can contact me directly, whichever you want to do. But they're not I don't have a surplus of them that I just send out. But yeah, it is available. And then for laymen, I sell after my show. It's just a souvenir. It's a piece of merch. It's a deck of cards, but within the deck of cards is a QR code, and you scan the QR code and 10 videos of me pop up. And so it's just hosted on a Google Drive. So they scan the QR code, and then I just teach really simple magic tricks in these videos. And it's the magic tricks we all know that, that we've all learned when we were a kid. That is geared towards laymen. It is more of a souvenir for kids, but you can learn simple magic tricks. So yeah, those are the two things that I still sell actively, the deck of cards and the topsy-turvy glue bottle, which is called Stuck Up. I guess the other thing I sell is the iCut, which is a cut and restored iPhone charger. The white or black, cell phone cord. It's a simple cut and restored. It's kind of a hybrid between geared towards laymen or geared towards adults. I've done it for crowds with magicians in it. I've done it for layman crowds. I've sold it to laymen. I've sold it to magicians. It's a very easy trick. It's not like your cut and restored rope where it's going to be an 8-minute routine. It's kind of a quick thing, but it's super easy enough for a layman to do. But magicians do it as well. So yeah, I guess I cut, Stuck Up glue, the deck of cards for laymen. So there you go.
How new is iCut? That's the only one I don't know about.
Not that new, to be honest. A few years old. I don't remember when I came up with it, but the magic shop has sold a handful of those. I sell them after lectures. I don't do too many lectures, but I sell all these things at my lectures when I do lectures. I don't know when I came up with iCut. It was a few years ago, let's say. So, okay. Yeah.
So what's next? What's next for Eric Buss?
Well, I don't know. What ideas do you have? No. Directly after Lake Tahoe, I have some shows in Arizona. I'm back at the Magic Castle mid-March. Again, I'm talking to Gay Blackstone's daughter, Bellamy, to be building a treehouse for them. I don't know when that will be confirmed. We're kind of going back and forth. And Gay Blackstone's daughter, Bellamy, is actually the producer of Wheel of Fortune. So needless to say, she's very busy. She has a very young daughter, 3 or 4 years old. And I went and spoke with Gay and saw the granddaughter. This is going back to like December. And then I've been talking with Bellamy via text. So we haven't figured out a time to build or anything, but they might be next in line for a treehouse, as well as the Magic Castle in March. Cruise ships are always, I'm always kind of coming back and forth from cruise ships. So that's all what's in the immediate future. What's in the distant future, who knows? My son is going to be 13 in 2 weeks. Maybe when he's in high school, I'll be traveling more. Maybe my wife will come with me more. I don't know. Maybe I'll quit magic and just build tree houses. Who knows? Maybe I'll come live on your 5 acres and just build Halloween stuff year round.
Nice.
Hey, I sent you a picture of the RV with the snow. You can hang out in the RV.
All right, sweet.
You can stay out there while you're building. We'll let you.
I was thinking year round when it's not snowing, but we'll see.
Yeah. I don't blame you on that one. Not at all.
Yeah, thanks.
So Instagram at Eric Bus Magic.
I believe, yeah, at Eric Bus Magic, and Facebook is at Eric Bus Magic. I'm on Twitter. I think it's at Eric C Bus, the letter C, for my middle name Christopher. But I am not active on Twitter at all. And sadly, I'm not all that active on Facebook or Instagram. I post the photos of me traveling, a few family photos occasionally, an announcement of a magic show, occasionally. But I'm not an online social networking guru like many are. So I'm getting older. But yes, you can find me on Facebook or Instagram, definitely.
And your wife does your PR for you. Let's wrap up with that.
Well, kind of. She has her own career. She is the director of marketing and PR at the Farmers Market in LA. And if you're not familiar, it's basically like Pike's Place in Seattle, but it is in Los Angeles. It's a permanent establishment, 50 restaurants, shops. It's open 365. So it's a big farmers market. It is not a tent with strawberries on tables. So she has her own career.
Studio? Is that right next to a studio?
It's right next to CBS Studios, yes.
We heard a whole story about that. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
That's where my wife is.
Wow.
But yeah, she definitely helps with my marketing and my writing, and she's my proofreader, and yeah, she definitely helps, but she's not technically on my payroll.
What was the show? Price is Right. So we had the host of the Price is Right on our podcast. And
Cool.
When he was a teenager, his family went to the farmer's market, and he was talking about this thing, and I was like, all right. And then he snuck on set after people's lunch break, and snuck in, checked out the prizes, went down the halls, just started, and then got in, kind of got kicked out. He thought he was going to be banned for life, but then he ended up being the announcer later on.
Yeah.
So that's
you said host. Who's the
no,
host?
not the announcer.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yes, you quite often see people at the farmers market with their Price is Right name tags on it. Right after a taping, they'll come over. Yes, it's basically the food court for CBS, but much cooler.
So how far are you away from all the fires and everything? I was just talking to another producer friend of mine about a project we're working on. He's like, things are crazy right now still. With the fire.
It's not nearly as crazy as it was early January. Yeah, it was pretty bad for a long time. We were not near the fire. We were not too close to the fires, fortunately. But the first night of wind that started all of that was very scary. We have a giant tree in our front yard that could go over in those winds. In fact, a very similar tree right down the street from us did go over. It smashed their car and the corner of their house. And it could have happened with our tree. It didn't, fortunately. But those winds the very first night were terrifying. And we woke up the next day to after those strong winds all night, and there were giant fires in the Palisades and Altadena. But both of those areas are far enough from us that we were not really in the fire danger zone. There would have had to have been a lot of houses to go up to get to ours. So fortunately, we were not near the fires, but the wind was terrifying. It was a smoky smell, ash in the air for days and actually a few weeks. The mood in LA was horrible. It was devastating to a lot of people. Everyone in LA knows somebody else who lost a house. And my wife and I each know a few people that lost houses or lost their children's school went up in flames or whatever. In fact, we know somebody that their house survived, but the rest of the neighborhood burned down and the school burnt down. So what's worse, losing your house or having a house in a completely useless neighborhood? I don't think you could sell it. I don't think you can live there. So their house survived, but it's not a good thing. So yeah, it was devastating for a lot of people. LA it's bouncing back and the mood did change. I was at the Magic Castle the week after, and so I was making a quick mention of it in the beginning of the show of, LA's had a rough week. Let's have some fun, just to kind of lighten the mood. And as the week at the Magic Castle progressed, you could kind of sense that people, even though they knew people that lost houses, maybe they lost stuff themselves, you could tell they were ready to kind of push on and move on and have some fun. So luckily we were bouncing back. But yeah, it was a devastating January.
We are horrible with geography. How far away is Burbank from LA?
Burbank is in LA, but Burbank is its own city. We have our own fire, police, and we have our own public school system, and that's why we moved there, because the public school system is really, really good in Burbank. But technically, we are in LA County. We are 20 minutes from the Magic Castle in Hollywood, so we're just north of the Magic Castle, and there's the Valley in LA, which is, where the Valley Girls came from back in the 80s. But Studio City, Toluca Lake, Burbank, North Hollywood, all those areas are just on the other side of the Hollywood Hills. So we are not far, 20 minutes into the Magic Castle. But yeah, it's just its own separate area, but we are technically in LA.
Yeah,
Nice.
See, we hear all those names, but we have no idea. We can't
No.
put it all together. Yeah,
No.
yeah.
Yeah,
Dude,
there's thousands of areas in LA. And I've lived there for now 27 years, and I still don't know all the areas. It's a big city.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, dude, thank you. I'm just going to enjoy watching some more footage of yours, because I'm going to go back and watch the kazoo and the CVS receipt. How you came up with that, amazing. I love it. I'm going to put videos of all this stuff on the Facebook group to share this, because you're the best. I love your creativity. I love your humor, but I love how it's not even close to anyone else. You have your own style. I love it. Thank you for doing
tried.
that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're the best. Everybody, ericbuss.com, Instagram @ericbussmagic, all that stuff. Only thing we have left to say is see you next week.
All right. Thank you. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Check us out online at wesisley.com and patreon.com/Wes_Iseli for behind-the-scenes videos, blooper videos, never-before-seen footage, discounts on merchandise, magic trick tutorials, and more. That's Wes Iseli, spelled WESISELI.